The courtyard of Thornmere Pack fell silent as the choosing bell tolled its final note. Eowyn kept her eyes fixed on the cracked flagstones beneath her feet, counting the familiar fissures, while unmated omegas shuffled into formation around her. 23 summers of life. And this was her 11th choosing ceremony. 11 times standing in this same courtyard. 11 times watching others be selected while she remained. Eowyn Voss, called the Pack Elder, his voice carrying the same weary resignation it held every season. Step forward. She obeyed, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes pressing against her skin. The whispers started immediately, as they always did. Why do they even let her participate anymore? Look at that hair. Moon-touched blood. Cursed from birth. Eowyn's jaw tightened, but she kept her expression carefully blank. The silver-white streaks that ran through her otherwise dark hair caught the afternoon light, marking her as clearly as a brand. Her pale violet eyes, so different from the amber and gold of normal wolves, swept briefly across the gathered alphas before returning to the ground. None of them would choose her. They never did. The ceremony droned on. One by one, alphas claimed their chosen omegas, leading them away to begin courtship rites. Eowyn remained motionless as the crowd around her thinned, as the other unclaimed omegas were dismissed with sympathetic murmurs, until she stood alone in the center of the courtyard. Perhaps next season, the elder began, the same empty words he offered every time. A horn blast shattered the uncomfortable silence. Eowyn's head snapped up as gasps rippled through the remaining crowd. Riders were approaching through the main gates, their horses lathered with sweat from hard travel. But it was the banner they carried that stole the breath from her lungs. Silver and black. A crowned wolf beneath a crescent moon. The Silver Crest banner, someone whispered in disbelief. That is the royal banner. The crowd parted like water before stone as the riders entered the courtyard. At their center rode a figure that commanded attention simply by existing, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell past his collar, and a face carved from granite and shadow. His eyes were the deep blue of midnight, and they swept across the gathered wolves with cold authority. Alpha King Kaelin of Valdros, ruler of the Northern Territories, the most powerful alpha in 5 generations. Eowyn had heard stories of him her entire life. A warrior king who had united the fractured northern packs through sheer force of will. A leader so dominant that even other alphas lowered their eyes in his presence. They said he had taken the crown at barely 20 years old after his father's murder, and had ruled with iron strength for the decade since. But the stories had failed to mention how the very air seemed to thicken around him, how his presence pressed against her senses like a physical weight, or how something about him seemed deeply, terribly wrong. As King Kaelin dismounted, Eowyn noticed what others seemed to miss. The slight stiffness in his movements, the way his left hand remained pressed against his side beneath his cloak, the pallor beneath his sun-darkened skin that spoke of illness carefully concealed. Alpha King, the elder stammered, dropping into a hasty bow. We had no word of your visit. Had we known, I require no ceremony. Kaelin's voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. I came because my seers spoke of this place, of this day. His dark blue gaze scanned the courtyard with unsettling intensity. They spoke of an omega, one marked by the moon. The silence that followed was absolute. Eowyn felt the blood drain from her face, as every head in the courtyard slowly turned toward her. The king's gaze followed their movement, and when those deep blue eyes locked onto hers, something jolted through her chest like lightning. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Eowyn could not look away, could not breathe, and could not think. His eyes narrowed slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her want to flee. Then he was moving toward her, his stride purposeful despite the hint of pain she could see him suppressing. The crowd scrambled backward, leaving her utterly exposed. King Kaelin stopped barely an arm's length away, towering over her by more than a head. Up close, she could smell him beneath the road, dust and leather, pine and winter frost, and something darker, something that called to the wolf inside her in ways she did not understand. Your name, he commanded. Eowyn. Her voice emerged steadier than she expected. Eowyn Voss. Eowyn. He repeated it slowly, as if tasting the syllables. His gaze traced the silver streaks in her hair, the pale violet of her eyes, and something flickered across his expression. Recognition? Hope? You are unclaimed. It was not a question, but she answered anyway. Yes. No alpha has ever. I know what they say about moon-touched blood. His voice cut through her explanation like a blade. They call it a curse, a defect. His lip curled with contempt that was not directed at her. They are fools. Before Elowin could respond, King Kaelin turned to address the stunned crowd, his voice carrying across the courtyard with absolute authority. I, Kaelin of House Valdros, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, claim this Omega as my own. He paused, and when he spoke again, the words struck like hammer blows. I want an heir from you, Elowin Voss. You will return with me to Valdros as my chosen mate. The courtyard erupted. Shouts of disbelief mingled with outraged protests. Elowin heard her own pack alpha pushing through the crowd, demanding explanations, questioning the king's sanity for choosing a defective Omega. But Kaelin silenced them all with a single raised hand. This is not a negotiation. His eyes found hers again, and beneath the cold command, she glimpsed something desperate. Your answer, Omega. Will you come willingly, or must I invoke the old laws? Elowin's mind raced. The old laws, the ancient right of kings to claim any unmated Omega in their territory. She could refuse, but it would mean nothing. He would take her anyway. Yet looking into those dark depths, seeing the pain he was hiding from everyone else, she felt an inexplicable pull toward this dying king, something primal that defied explanation. Why me? She whispered, too quiet for anyone else to hear. Something in his expression cracked, just for an instant. Because you are the only one who can save me, he breathed back. And I am running out of time. Before she could ask what he meant, he extended his hand toward her. A choice. An offer. A point of no return. Elowin thought of her younger brother Rowan, who had defended her against every taunt, who would worry himself sick when he learned she had gone. Thought of 11 years of rejection, of being told she was worthless, defective, cursed. And here stood a king, telling her she was the only one who could save him. She placed her hand in his. The journey to Valdros took 4 days. Elowin spent most of it in a covered carriage, surrounded by luxury she had never experienced, and questions no one would answer. King Kaelin rode at the head of the procession, always visible through the carriage window, but never close enough to speak with. The few times she had tried to approach him during rest stops, his guards had politely but firmly redirected her. The king requires solitude to prepare for the bonding ceremony, they told her. Always the same words, delivered with eyes that would not meet hers, but Elowin had spent a lifetime learning to observe what others tried to hide. She noticed how Kaelin dismounted more slowly each evening, how he ate little at meals and excused himself early, how his second-in-command, a scarred alpha named Theron, watched his king with barely concealed worry. Something was very wrong with the Alpha King. On the 4th night, unable to sleep, Elowin slipped from her tent. The camp was quiet, most of the guards resting before the final push to Valdros at dawn. Moonlight silvered the mountain path ahead, and she walked along it aimlessly, her restless wolf pacing beneath her skin. That was when she heard it. A low groan of pain, quickly stifled, coming from the king's tent. Elowin knew she should return to her own quarters. She was not yet his mate, not yet bound to him by anything more than words spoken in a courtyard. Whatever afflicted him was not her concern, but her feet carried her forward anyway. The tent flap was partially open, and through the gap she could see Kaelin hunched over a basin of water, his shirt discarded on the ground. What she saw made her blood turn to ice. His entire left side was covered in blackened veins that spread from a wound just below his ribs. The corruption pulsed with each heartbeat, creeping slowly toward his heart, like frost-consuming glass. The flesh around the wound was necrotic, weeping a substance that shimmered with unnatural darkness. Kaelin's head snapped up, his deep blue eyes finding hers through the gap. For a moment, neither of them moved. You should not be here, he growled, but there was no strength behind the words. Elowin pushed into the tent. How long? It does not concern. How long have you been hiding this? The question hung between them. Then, slowly, the rigid control in his expression crumbled. 3 months, he admitted. An assassin's blade, coated with shadowbane poison. My healers have tried everything. His laugh was bitter, hollow. Ironic, is it not? The most powerful alpha in the realm? Brought low by a single cut. Elowin moved closer, her healer's instincts overriding her fear. She had seen corruption before, had treated wounds that lesser healers deemed hopeless. But this was different. The darkness in his veins seemed almost alive, recoiling slightly as she approached. "Why choose me?" she asked again, the question that had haunted her for 4 days. "You said I could save you." "How?" Kaelin's eyes met hers, and in their depths, she saw the truth he had hidden from the world. He was terrified. Not of death, but of dying before he could secure his kingdom's future. "The old prophecies speak of moon-touched omegas," he said quietly. "Wolves blessed with lunar blood, capable of magic that others cannot wield. My seers believe such an omega could purge the Shadowbane." He paused. "They also believe the attempt would likely kill you." The words struck her like a physical blow. "You brought me here to die for you. I brought you here because I had no other choice." His voice cracked. "The poison spreads faster each day. Without an heir, my kingdom falls to civil war. Without a cure, I have perhaps 2 weeks before it reaches my heart." He looked at her then, truly looked, and she saw not a king but a man facing his own end. "I will not force you. If you wish to return to Thornmere, I will have my men escort you at first light." Elwyn stared at the corruption consuming his body. At this proud alpha, brought to his knees by desperation, she thought of her brother Rowan, of the life of rejection awaiting her if she returned home, and she thought of the strange pull she felt toward this dying king, the way her wolf had recognized him in that courtyard, as though they had known each other across lifetimes. "Show me the wound," she said quietly. Hope flickered in his dark blue gaze. "You would stay?" "I would look, nothing more." She knelt beside him, reaching toward the corruption. "But I make no promises. I cannot." The moment her fingers touched the edge of the blackened veins, light exploded behind her eyes. Elwyn gasped, as visions crashed through her mind like waves against stone. She saw Kaelin as a child, running through moonlit forests. Saw him take the crown at barely 20 years old, his father's blood still wet on the throne room floor. Saw him fight, and suffer, and sacrifice everything to hold his kingdom together. And beneath it all, she felt his wolf. Ancient and powerful and achingly lonely, reaching toward something it had searched for across centuries. Reaching toward her, the connection severed as violently as it had formed. Elwyn stumbled backward, her heart pounding so hard she could hear nothing else. Kaelin caught her arms before she could fall, his grip strong despite his illness. "What did you see?" His voice was urgent, desperate. "Everything," she breathed. "I saw. How is that possible? How did I?" "Moon-touched blood," he said, wonder replacing the desperation in his eyes. "The seers spoke true. You have the gift." His grip on her arms tightened. "You can heal me. I do not know what I can do." Elwyn pulled free, her mind reeling. "That has never happened before. I have never." She stopped. That was not entirely true, was it? There had been moments throughout her life. The dying lamb she had touched as a child, which had risen the next morning, as though nothing had been wrong. The fever that had nearly claimed Rowan, breaking the instant she had held his hand, and wished desperately for him to live. She had always dismissed those moments as coincidence. Her mother had warned her to never speak of them, to never acknowledge the strangeness that lived inside her. "It is not safe," her mother had whispered. "The gift you carry, if anyone discovers it, they will destroy you. Promise me you will keep it hidden, always." Elwyn had kept that promise for 23 years. "There is more," Kaelin said quietly, watching her face. "The bonding ceremony is tomorrow night. Once we are mated, our wolves will be connected. My healers believe that connection will amplify your gift enough to purge the poison." "Mated." Elwyn's voice emerged flat. "You wish to bond with me, to claim me fully." "Yes, because it will save your life." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "Yes, and what happens to me?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "After you are healed, and you have your heir, what becomes of the defective omega you claimed out of desperation?" Kaelin flinched as though she had struck him. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched the silver streak at her temple. "You think I chose you only because my seers commanded it." His voice was rough. "You think this is merely transaction, is it not? When I rode into that courtyard, I expected to find a weapon." His thumb traced along her cheekbone, feather-light. Instead, I found you, standing alone while everyone else had fled, meeting my eyes when grown alphas could not. Do you know how rare that is? The air stilled in Eloin's chest. I did not know who you were. You knew exactly who I was. You simply did not care. Something like wonder entered his expression, and when I looked at you, when I truly looked, my wolf spoke for the first time in years. It said mine, with such certainty that I could not breathe. The confession hung between them, heavy with implication. Eloin wanted to dismiss it as manipulation, but she had seen inside his mind. She knew he was not lying. The bonding? She said carefully. If I agree, what does it require? A claiming bite. His eyes dropped to her throat, and she saw hunger there, quickly suppressed. My mark on your skin. It will bind our wolves together. And if I refuse? Then I die, and you return home. He released her face, stepping back. I told you I would not force you. I meant it. Eloin closed her eyes, wrestling with a decision that would shape the rest of her life. She thought of the corruption spreading toward his heart, of the visions she had seen, the lonely alpha who had never stopped searching for something he could not name, of the way her wolf had surged toward his, recognizing him on some level she could not explain. I need time, she said finally. Until tomorrow night. Let me have until then. Kaelin nodded slowly. You will have it. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the tent's entrance. Eloin. When she looked back, his expression had softened into something almost vulnerable. Whatever you decide, I want you to know. You are not defective. You never were. The wolf who claims you, whoever he may be, will be the luckiest alpha alive. She fled before he could see the tears that burned in her eyes. That night, alone in her tent, Eloin dreamed of moonlight and wolves howling across frozen peaks. She dreamed of Kaelin's hands on her skin, of his teeth at her throat, of pleasure and pain intertwined until she could not tell them apart. She woke, gasping, her body burning with need she had never experienced, the phantom sensation of a claiming bite still throbbing at her neck, and when she touched the unmarked skin of her throat, her fingers came away wet with blood. Eloin did not sleep again that night. She sat rigid on her bedroll, pressing cloth after cloth to her throat, watching the blood seep through fabric that should have remained pristine. There was no wound. She had checked a dozen times, running her fingers across smooth, unbroken skin, yet the bleeding continued, slow and steady, as if her body was responding to a mark that did not exist. By dawn, the bleeding had stopped, leaving only a faint tenderness where she could have sworn teeth had pierced her flesh. The bonding ceremony was tonight. Eloin emerged from her tent to find the camp already being dismantled. In the distance, she could see their destination for the first time. Valdros. The fortress city rose from the mountainside like something carved by gods rather than wolves, its silver-gray spires catching the morning light. Even from miles away, she could feel the power emanating from those ancient walls. My lady. Theron appeared at her elbow, his scarred face unreadable. The king requests your presence in his carriage for the final approach. Eloin's pulse quickened. 4 days of careful distance, and now he wanted her close? She found Kaelin waiting inside the royal carriage, looking worse than he had the night before. The corruption had spread visibly, dark veins now creeping up his neck, despite the high collar he wore to conceal them. His deep blue eyes were fever-bright. Sit, he said, gesturing to the seat across from him. We must speak before we reach the city. Eloin sat, acutely aware of the carriage walls pressing close around them. You look worse. The poison accelerates, he said it flatly, without self-pity. My healers believe I have days now, not weeks. Then perhaps we should not wait for tonight. No. His voice sharpened. The bonding must happen under the full moon for your gift to reach its full strength. Anything less, and the poison will simply regenerate faster than you can purge it. He leaned forward, intensity burning through the illness. There is something else, something I did not tell you last night. Eloin tensed. What? The Shadowbane poison was not random. The assassin who struck me was sent by someone within my own court. His jaw tightened. I have enemies, Eloin. Powerful ones who would rather see Valdros burn than watch me produce an heir. When word spreads that I have chosen a mate, they will come for you. Then why announce it publicly? Why not conduct the bonding in secret? Because I need them to show themselves. His eyes held hers with desperate urgency. I am dying. Even if your gift succeeds, I may not survive the healing. My kingdom needs to know who its enemies are before I am gone. Elowyn stared at him. You are using yourself as bait. I am using both of us as bait. He reached across the space between them, taking her hand in his. His skin burned with fever, but his grip was steady. I should have told you sooner. You deserve to know the full truth of what you are walking into. She should have been furious, should have ripped her hand away and demanded to be returned to Thornmere. Instead, she found herself turning her palm to intertwine her fingers with his. I dreamed of you last night, she said quietly. I dreamed you marked me, and when I woke, my throat was bleeding. Kaelin went utterly still. That is not possible, and yet. She tilted her head, showing him the faint bruising that had appeared where phantom teeth had pierced her skin. Something is already connecting us. Something that began before any ceremony. His free hand rose to touch the marks, his fingers trembling. Moon touched blood, he breathed. The bond is forming on its own. Reaching for completion without the ritual. Is that dangerous? I do not know. His thumb traced the tender skin, and Elowyn shivered at the contact. But I know what it means. It means you are truly my mate. Not just chosen, but fated. The bond would not form otherwise. The carriage jolted as they began the final ascent to Valdros. Through the window, Elowyn could see crowds gathering along the road, wolves who had come to witness their king's return, and to see the Omega he had claimed. Whatever happens tonight, Kaelin said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Know that I did not choose you for your gift alone. I chose you because my wolf recognized yours across a crowded courtyard, because, for the first time in 30 winters, I felt something other than duty and obligation. His eyes burned into hers. I chose you because looking at you feels like finally coming home. Elowyn's throat tightened. She opened her mouth to respond. The carriage doors flew open, and the roar of the crowd swallowed whatever words she might have spoken. The great hall of Valdros blazed with torchlight and tension. Elowyn stood at Kaelin's side on the raised dais, wearing a gown of silver and black that marked her as the king's chosen. The nobility of Valdros spread before them like a glittering sea. Hundreds of wolves dressed in their finest, their eyes sharp with curiosity and calculation. Smile, Kaelin murmured without moving his lips. They are looking for weakness. Elowyn forced her expression into something approaching serenity, though her wolf paced restlessly beneath her skin. Something felt wrong. The air itself seemed to crackle with hidden hostility, and she could not shake the sensation of being watched by unfriendly eyes. Lords and ladies of Valdros, Kaelin's voice rang through the hall, strong despite the poison eating him from within. I present to you Elowyn Voss of Thornmere Pack. Tonight, under the full moon, she will become your queen. The applause that followed was polite, but subdued. Elowyn saw the glances exchanged between nobles, the whispered comments hidden behind jeweled fans. They did not approve of her. That much was obvious. The moon touched one, someone muttered, just loud enough to carry. He chose a cursed Omega to bear his heirs. Elowyn's hands clenched at her sides, but before she could respond, a new voice cut through the murmuring. Perhaps our king's judgment has been compromised by his illness. The crowd parted to reveal a woman ascending the dais steps. She was beautiful in the cold, perfect way of a blade silver blonde hair, ice blue eyes, and a smile that did not reach them. The sapphire pendant at her throat marked her as high nobility. Lady Seraphine. Kaelin's voice had gone dangerously flat. You forget yourself. I forget nothing, Your Majesty. Seraphine stopped just below the dais, her gaze fixed on Elowyn with thinly veiled contempt. I simply wonder if the court might be informed why our king has chosen a defective Omega from an insignificant pack when there are so many suitable candidates within Valdros itself. The silence that followed was absolute. Elowyn felt Kaelin tense beside her, felt the fury rolling off him in waves. But before he could speak, she stepped forward. Perhaps, Elowyn said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. The king grew weary of suitable candidates who care more for power than for him. Seraphine's perfect mask slipped, revealing the venom beneath. You dare. I dare nothing. Elowyn descended 2 steps, bringing herself level with the other woman. I merely observe. You speak of suitability, Lady Seraphine. Yet I see no concern for our king's health in your eyes. Only ambition disappointed. The crowd's murmur shifted, surprise replacing hostility. Seraphine's face contorted with rage. You know nothing of this court. You backwater. Enough. Kaelin's command cracked through the hall like thunder. Lady Seraphine, you will apologize to your future queen, or you will leave this hall and not return. For a heartbeat, Eowyn thought Seraphine might actually strike her. Then the noblewoman's expression smoothed into false contrition. Forgive me, your majesty. The excitement of the evening overcame my manners. She curtsied, but her eyes promised retribution. I wish you both every happiness. She melted back into the crowd, but Eowyn could still feel her hatred like a physical weight. The ceremony that followed passed in a blur. Eowyn stood where she was directed, spoke the words she was prompted to speak, all while her instincts screamed that danger lurked just beneath the surface of this glittering court. When the full moon finally rose, painting the great hall in silver light, Kaelin led her to a private chamber high in the fortress. The room was sparse but beautiful, dominated by a bed draped in furs, and a window that framed the moon perfectly. Are you ready? Kaelin asked, his voice rough. Eowyn turned to face him. In the moonlight, she could see how much the evening had cost him. His skin had gone gray beneath its tan, and sweat beaded at his temples. The corruption was spreading faster now, as if it sensed what they were about to attempt. I am ready, she said. Kaelin crossed to her slowly, his movements careful, controlled. When he reached her, he cupped her face in both hands, tilting it up to meet his gaze. The claiming bite will hurt, he warned. And what comes after the purging of the poison, I cannot promise what that will feel like for you. I know. You could still refuse. Eowyn rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning. Then Kaelin made a sound deep in his throat and pulled her against him, his mouth claiming hers with desperate hunger. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had begun to glow with amber light, his wolf rising to the surface. Mine, he growled, the word barely human. Yours, she whispered back, his head lowered to her throat. The world exploded into light and darkness, and sensation beyond description. Eowyn felt his teeth sink deep, felt the bond snap into place like a chain forged in fire. And with it came the corruption, the shadow-bane poison pouring through their connection, flooding her veins with darkness that screamed for her destruction. Her gift rose to meet it. Golden light erupted from her hands, from her skin, from every part of her being. It crashed against the darkness, like waves against rock, burning away the corruption wherever it touched. Eowyn screamed as the battle raged inside her, her body becoming the battlefield for forces older than civilization. Through the agony, she heard Kaelin crying out her name, felt his arms around her, his wolf howling its fury at the poison that threatened his mate. And then, distantly, she heard something else, a door crashing open, shouts of alarm, the clash of steel. The last thing Eowyn saw before darkness claimed her was Seraphine, standing in the doorway, armed guards at her back, and a triumphant smile on her perfect face. Arrest them both, Seraphine commanded. The king has been bewitched by the moon-touched witch. Eowyn woke in chains. The cell was cold, damp stone that seeped chill into her bones. Iron shackles bound her wrists to the wall above her head, the metal burning against her skin. Moonlight filtered through a small, barred window, telling her that not much time had passed. The corruption, the claiming, Seraphine. Memory crashed back in fragments. She remembered the light, the darkness, the battle raging inside her body. Remembered Kaelin's arms around her, his wolf howling its defiance. Remembered the door bursting open before the healing could complete. Kaelin, she gasped, struggling against her chains. Where is... Silence, witch. A guard stood outside her cell, his face twisted with disgust. Beyond him, Eowyn could see other cells stretching into darkness. Where is the king? She demanded. The guard's laugh was ugly. The king? Lady Seraphine has assumed regency until the council can determine if he has been compromised by your dark magic. He leaned closer, his breath foul against the bars. The poison has nearly reached his heart. Without your witchcraft propping him up, he will be dead by morning. No. The word tore through Eowyn's mind with primal force. The bond incomplete as it was screamed in response, flooding her with Kaelin's pain. She could feel him dying, could feel the corruption consuming what remained of his strength. "You do not understand," she said desperately. "I was healing him." "The corruption. Save your lies for the trial." The guard stepped back. "Lady Seraphine has called for execution at dawn. Witchcraft carries a death sentence in Valdros." He walked away, leaving her alone in the darkness. Elowen pulled at her chains until her wrists bled, but the iron held firm. The moon climbed higher through her tiny window, and with each passing moment, she felt Kalen growing weaker. He was dying. And she was trapped here, helpless to save him. The cell door creaked open. Elowen's head snapped up, expecting guards come to drag her to execution. Instead, a hooded figure slipped through the shadows, moving with fluid grace. "Who?" "Quiet." A woman's voice, familiar somehow. "We do not have much time." The figure pushed back her hood, revealing a face lined with age but fierce with determination. It was Theron's mother. Elowen recognized her from the journey. The old woman produced a key and began working on the shackles. "Lady Mirena," Elowen breathed. "What are you?" "Saving the only hope my kingdom has." The first shackle fell away. "Seraphine has wanted the throne since Kalen took the crown. She is the one who arranged the assassination attempt. The Shadowbane poison was meant to kill him slowly, giving her time to position herself as the obvious successor. She poisoned him, her and her allies." The second shackle released, and Elowen stumbled forward. "Half the council is in her pocket. They will declare him unfit to rule by morning, and you will be executed as the convenient scapegoat." Elowen rubbed her raw wrists. "Where is Kalen?" "In the tower chamber where they found you. Seraphine wants him to die there, in his own bed. More poetic, she says." Mirena's expression hardened. "My son Theron is trying to rally the loyal guards, but Seraphine controls most of the fortress. You are his only chance." The healing was not complete. "The corruption, then you must complete it." Mirena pressed something into her palm. "A key. The tower passage behind the eastern tapestry. Go now, before the changing of the guard." Elowen did not hesitate. She ran through shadow-dark corridors, following Mirena's directions while the bond pulled her toward Kalen like a compass needle finding north. The incomplete claiming burned beneath her skin, demanding completion. The eastern tapestry depicted wolves running beneath a silver moon. Behind it, just as Mirena had promised, a hidden door opened onto a narrow passage. Elowen climbed. The tower chamber was exactly as she remembered, except now Kalen lay motionless on the bed, his skin gray as ash, the corruption covering half his body in a web of black veins. Guards surrounded the room, but they wore Seraphine's colors, not the king's. "Well," Seraphine rose from a chair by the window, her ice-blue eyes glittering with triumph. "The witch escapes her chains. How predictable." "Let me heal him." Elowen's voice shook with fury and fear. "Whatever you want, whatever power you are seeking, just let me save him first." "Save him?" Seraphine laughed. "Why would I want that? His death serves me perfectly, and yours will serve as warning to anyone who thinks to challenge my rule." She gestured to her guards. "Kill her. Make it slow." The guards advanced. Elowen's wolf surged to the surface, but she had never shifted, never learned to fight in her beast form. She was an Omega, not a warrior. She was. Pain exploded through her body. Not attack something deeper, something breaking apart and reforming inside her. The incomplete bond, the claiming bite, her moon-touched blood, all of it combusting at once. Elowen screamed as her bones shattered and rebuilt themselves. Her skin rippled, fur erupting across her flesh. The guard stumbled backward in shock as she fell to her knees, her body twisting into a shape it had never held before. When the agony faded, Elowen stood on 4 legs. Her wolf was massive, larger than any Omega had right to be. Her fur was silver white, matching the streaks in her human hair, and her eyes blazed with golden light that made Seraphine's guards whimper and drop their weapons. But she barely noticed them. Her mate was dying. And nothing, not guards, not politics, not Seraphine's ambition, would stop her from reaching him. Elowen threw back her head and howled. The guards scattered like leaves before a storm. Elowen barely registered their retreat. Her wolf senses were overwhelmed with a single imperative: reach her mate. She bounded across the chamber on legs that moved with impossible grace, her silver-white fur catching the moonlight streaming through the windows. Seraphine stood her ground, though fear flickered behind her ice-blue eyes. You think shifting changes anything, witch? He is already dead. The corruption has. Elowen's wolf lunged. Not to kill, though every instinct screamed for blood. She simply knocked Seraphine aside, sending the noblewoman crashing into the stone wall with enough force to steal her breath. Then Elowen was at the bed, shifting back to human form without conscious thought, her hands reaching for Kaelin's motionless body. He was worse than before. So much worse. The corruption had spread across his entire torso, climbing his throat, reaching toward his face. His heartbeat was barely a whisper beneath her palms. His wolf, that ancient presence she had felt during their incomplete bond, was silent. No, Elowen breathed. No, no, no. Stay with me, Kaelin, please. She reached for her gift, for the golden light that had erupted during the claiming ceremony. It flickered weakly, exhausted from her transformation, from the interrupted healing, from everything she had endured. It was not enough. She could feel it. Whatever power she possessed, it could not overcome this much corruption alone. Foolish girl. Seraphine had recovered, rising to her feet with murder in her eyes. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, but her smile was triumphant. Did you think love conquers all? This is Shadowbane poison, refined over generations. It was designed specifically to kill Alpha Kings. Your pathetic magic cannot. Then I will give more than magic. The words came from somewhere deep inside Elowen, from the place where her wolf resided, from the bond that strained toward completion with every fiber of her being. She understood now. The claiming bite Kaelin had given her, it had opened a channel between them, allowing her gift to flow into him. But the channel only went one direction. To truly purge the corruption, she needed to complete the bond. She needed to claim him in return. The reciprocal bite, she whispered, remembering fragments from the old stories her mother had told. That is what is missing. What are you babbling about? Seraphine demanded. Elowen ignored her. She climbed onto the bed, positioning herself over Kaelin's still form. His neck was exposed, the corruption crawling across his throat like black lightning. If she bit him there, where the poison was thickest, she would be taking the darkness directly into herself. It would either complete the bond, or save them both. Or it would kill her instantly. You cannot be serious. Seraphine's voice had shifted from triumph to alarm. Guards! Guards, stop her! But no guards came. In the distance, Elowen could hear sounds of fighting Theron and his loyalists. She realized, finally breaking through Seraphine's forces. She had moments. Seconds, perhaps. Elowen looked down at Kaelin's face, memorizing every line and shadow. The strong jaw, the lips that had kissed her with such desperate tenderness, the eyes that had seen her worth when no one else would. I choose you, she whispered. Not because prophecy demanded it, not because your kingdom needed an heir. I choose you because my wolf recognized yours from the first moment, because looking at you feels like finally understanding what home means. She leaned down, her lips brushing his ear. My turn to save you, my king. Her teeth found the junction of his neck and shoulder, the same spot where he had marked her. She bit down hard, tasting blood and corruption, and something else, something that blazed with ancient power. The world went white. Pain unlike anything Elowen had ever experienced consumed her. The corruption poured through their completed bond like poison through opened veins. She could feel it attacking her gift, trying to overwhelm the golden light with endless darkness. Her body convulsed, her back arching as she fought to maintain the connection. Through the agony, she sensed Kaelin's wolf stirring, felt his consciousness flickering at the edge of awareness. The bond between them blazed like a sun, burning away the shadows wherever its light touched. But there was so much darkness, years of corruption, refined and concentrated into pure malevolence. It crashed against her defenses in wave after wave, each one weaker than the last but still devastating. Elowen felt herself fading. Her gift was depleting faster than she could replenish it. The golden light flickered, dimmed, threatened to extinguish entirely. Not enough, she thought desperately. I am not strong enough. Then she felt him. Kaelin's wolf, awakened by the completed bond, rose to meet hers. His power, ancient, primal, magnificent, merged with her gift, in a fusion that shook the very foundations of the fortress. Silver and gold light intertwined, creating something new, Something unprecedented. Together, they were more than either could be alone. The corruption screamed as their combined power tore through it. Elowin watched through their shared consciousness as the Shadowbane poison was burned away, purged from Kaelin's body cell by cell. His heart strengthened, his lungs filled with clean breath, his wolf howled in triumph. When the last trace of darkness had been destroyed, the light faded, and Elowin collapsed. She was distantly aware of shouting, of Seraphine's shrill voice rising in panic, of doors bursting open and the clash of steel. But it all seemed very far away, separated from her by an ocean of exhaustion. Elowin, Kaelin's voice, rough with emotion, cut through the fog. Elowin, open your eyes. Please, please, my heart, stay with me. She wanted to respond, wanted to tell him she was fine, that they had won, that the corruption was gone. But her body would not cooperate. The reciprocal claiming had taken everything she had. No. His voice cracked. No, I will not lose you. Not now. Not after everything. She felt his arms gather her against his chest, felt his tears falling hot against her face. Through their bond, she sensed his anguish worse than anything the poison had inflicted. He thought she was dying. Thought he had survived only to watch his mate fade away. I should never have asked this of you, he choked. Should never have brought you here. You were innocent. You were stubborn. Elowin managed to whisper. Kaelin froze. Then his hands were cradling her face, tilting it up so he could see her eyes flutter open. You are alive. The words were barely audible. You are alive. Difficult to kill. Her voice was thread-thin, but she forced a smile. Moon-touched blood, remember? He laughed a broken, desperate sound and crushed her against him. His lips found her forehead, her cheeks, her eyelids, pressing kisses everywhere he could reach. Never again, he growled against her temple. I will never risk you again. Do you understand me? You are my mate, my queen, my very soul. I cannot exist without you. Then stop crying on me, she murmured. Queens do not like soggy embraces. His laugh this time was stronger, edged with joy rather than despair. When he pulled back to look at her, his eyes were clear of pain for the first time since she had met him. The corruption was truly gone. Guards! Seraphine's scream shattered the moment. Kill them both, I command you! But when Elowin looked toward the doorway, she saw that the situation had changed entirely. Theron stood at the entrance with 24 soldiers at his back, all wearing the king's colors. Seraphine was surrounded, her own guards either fled or subdued. Lady Seraphine of House Valmore, Theron announced, his voice carrying the weight of judgment. You are under arrest for high treason, attempted regicide, and conspiracy against the crown. This is absurd, Seraphine spat. I am protecting the realm from your king? Kaelin rose from the bed, and despite his ordeal, power radiated from him like heat from a forge. From the mate who just saved my life? He stepped towards Seraphine, and even surrounded by loyal guards, she shrank back from the fury in his eyes. You poisoned me, he said quietly. Arranged my assassination. Tried to murder my queen. And for what? A throne you were never worthy to occupy? The throne should have been mine. Seraphine's composure finally broke completely. I was supposed to be your queen. The council promised me. The council will face its own reckoning. Kaelin's voice was ice and iron. Take her to the deepest cell. She will stand trial before the full assembly of lords. As the guards dragged Seraphine away, her screams echoing through the corridor, Kaelin turned back to Elowin, the anger drained from his face, replaced by tenderness so profound it made her chest ache. Can you stand? He asked softly. I think so. He helped her rise, keeping one arm firmly around her waist. Together, they walked to the window, where the full moon still hung heavy in the sky. The bond, Elowin said, pressing her hand to her heart. She could feel him there now, a constant presence, warm and reassuring. It is complete, more than complete. Kaelin turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. What we have? What you created with your gift, my healers have never seen anything like it. Our wolves are not just bonded, they are merged. Two souls becoming one. Is that bad? It means I will never be alone again. His forehead pressed against hers. It means you will always know my heart as I know yours. It means that for as long as we both live, we are truly, irrevocably, eternally one. Elowen felt tears sliding down her cheeks. The girl everyone rejected, she whispered. The defective Omega with cursed blood. The queen who saved her king. Kaelin wiped her tears with his thumbs. The most powerful wolf Valdros has ever known. My mate. My heart. My home. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and full of promise. Through their bond, she felt his love pouring into her vast as oceans, enduring as mountains, fierce as wildfire. When they finally broke apart, dawn was painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. A new day. A new beginning. Your people will need to see us, Elowen said. To know you have survived. To meet their new queen. They will. Kaelin smiled, the first true smile she had ever seen from him, free of pain and shadows. But first, I believe I promised you something. What? An heir. His eyes darkened with desire that made her pulse quicken. I seem to recall making that particular demand in a very public courtyard. Elowen laughed, the sound bright with joy she had never thought to feel. Perhaps the heir can wait until after we address the attempted coup? Perhaps. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear. Or perhaps I simply cannot wait another moment to show my mate how much she means to me. The kiss that followed held no desperation, no fear, no shadow of corruption, only love, pure and complete. And far below, in the courtyard of Valdros, the wolves of the northern territories lifted their voices in celebration. Their king had survived, their queen had risen, and in the howling chorus that echoed across the mountains, Elowen heard the sound of home. She had spent 23 years being rejected, dismissed, called defective, and cursed. She had believed she would never belong, never be wanted, never find her place in the world. She had been wrong. Her place was here, in the arms of a king who saw her worth when no one else would. Her purpose was this: to love and be loved, to rule and protect, to build a future neither of them had dared imagine. A week later, a messenger arrived from Thornmere, carrying a letter from her brother Rowan. He had heard the stories sweeping across the territories, tales of the moon-touched Omega who had become queen, who had saved the Alpha King with magic no one thought possible. His words were simple. I always knew you were destined for something extraordinary. I am so proud of you, sister. Elowen held the letter to her heart, tears of joy streaming down her face. She had not lost her family by gaining a new one. She had simply expanded what home meant. The Omega everyone rejected had become the queen everyone would remember, and she had never been happier. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you would like to hear more tales of fated mates and second chances, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support truly means the world to me.